Why did Jesus curse a fig tree? Out of everything he did in his earthly ministry, healing the sick, raising the dead, feeding thousands, this moment feels strange, almost out of character. A tree has no fruit, so he curses it? What's really going on here? To answer that question on a deeper level, we first need to walk through the Bible passage itself and pay attention to how the story unfolds. Mark 11 verses 12 to 14 says, "The next day as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. Seeing in the distance a fig tree in leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. When he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was not the season for figs. Then he said to the tree, 'May no one ever eat fruit from you again.' And his disciples heard him say it." After this, Jesus enters Jerusalem and drives out the merchants and money changers from the temple courts. He overturns tables and condemns what his Father's house had become. The temple was meant to be a place of genuine prayer, worship, thanksgiving, and repentance. Instead, it had become corrupted by exploitation, commercialism, and hollow religious performance. Then, the following morning, in Mark 11 verses 20 to 21, "In the morning, as they went along, they saw the fig tree withered from the roots. Peter remembered and said to Jesus, 'Rabbi, look, the fig tree you cursed has withered.'" Now here's why the order of the story matters. Mark intentionally mentions the cursing of the fig tree before and after the temple incident as a literary technique. Scholars often call this a Markan sandwich. Mark uses this structure several times throughout his gospel. He begins one story, interrupts it with another, and then returns to the first story so the two events interpret each other. In this instance, the fig tree explains the temple, and the temple explains the fig tree. But how does this help answer our question of why Jesus cursed the tree? Here's the context. During biblical times, the fig tree was a well-known symbol of Israel's spiritual condition. The Old Testament prophets, Jeremiah, Hosea, Micah, and others, often used the fig tree as imagery for God's people. A fruitful fig tree represented spiritual health, faithfulness, justice, and covenant blessing. A barren fig tree symbolized spiritual failure and coming judgment. Thus, early Jewish audiences hearing or reading this gospel would immediately have recognized the symbolism. Now look carefully at the tree Jesus finds. It is covered in leaves, which means it looks alive and healthy from a distance. But here's the detail that unlocks the passage. In that region, fig trees normally produced small early fruit before the leaves fully appeared. So if a tree already had leaves but no early fruit, it was a sign that no real figs were coming later either. The tree gave the appearance of fruitfulness while actually being barren. And that is exactly what Jesus had just seen in the temple. Jerusalem was packed with people because it was Passover, the biggest religious festival of the year. The temple courts were overflowing with sacrifices, rituals, commerce, and religious activity. Outwardly, everything looked spiritually vibrant. But when Jesus walked in, he saw worship that had become corrupted, performative, and spiritually empty beneath the surface. So when Jesus curses the fig tree, he is not throwing a fit at a plant. He is actually acting out a crucial prophetic sign so that we may understand what he is showing us on a deeper level. The tree serves as a living visual illustration of spiritually barren religion. Religion that looks alive outwardly, but produces no real fruit. And when the Bible speaks about fruit, it means the evidence of a life genuinely transformed by God, a heart increasingly marked by repentance, obedience, humility, active love for others, justice, mercy, faithfulness, and sincere devotion to God, rather than mere superficial or surface-level religion. So what does this mean for Christians today? What does the incident of the fig tree actually teach us? First, looking spiritually alive on the outside is not the same as truly belonging to God inwardly. The fig tree had leaves. The temple had crowds, sacrifices, songs, teachers, and activity. But Jesus was looking for something deeper, a person's genuine desire to know God, walk closely with him, trust him fully, and allow that faith to shape the way they live. Put simply, a person can know Christian language, attend church regularly, and still remain spiritually barren underneath. Second, fruitlessness has consequences. This is important because on the surface, neither the fig tree nor the temple appeared openly destructive. The tree looked healthy, the temple looked successful and active, but Jesus still judged them because they failed to produce what truly matters to God, the fruit of genuine faithfulness, righteousness, and lives transformed by him. That is the warning of this passage. It is possible to maintain the appearance of spiritual life while secretly drifting far from the heart of God. And eventually, God confronts empty religion and those who do not truly desire to abide in him. Third, this passage reminds us what it truly means to follow Jesus. The answer to spiritually empty religion is not simply adding more religious activity. Jesus calls people into a real and living relationship with God, one that transforms the heart from the inside out. Following Jesus was never meant to be a performance, a routine, or a public image. Genuine faith produces visible fruit over time: compassion, integrity, forgiveness, perseverance, and love for God and people. Not a flawless life, but a life where God's transforming work is clearly taking root and becoming visible. And that is why the fig tree becomes like a mirror to us. It reflects the true condition of our spiritual life and confronts the gap between outward appearance and inward reality. The story invites every believer to ask, is my faith merely outward, or am I open to letting God truly transform my life? Do I only appear spiritually healthy from a distance, or is there real fruit growing outwards from within me? The warning of the fig tree is serious, but it is also a loving invitation. Jesus is calling each of us into the kind of faith that is alive, fruitful, sincere, and rooted in God himself. And that leaves us with one final question. When Jesus comes looking for fruit in our lives, what will he find?